Welcome to another episode of the hashtag Black Professionals Project. My name is Kenton Hipsher. I am the CEO and founder of the project, and our mission is to educate and inspire Black and Brown youth through the careers of Black and Brown professionals. And today we have a wonderful Black professional with us, and her name is Dr. Keisha. And you may have seen her on a many of platforms and have seen some of her content out there.
I sit on 3 different major organizations, and we're all looking at this outcome. How do we prepare children to thrive in the future? What does a student in 2030 who's going to be at this level in their academic career, what skills do they need to know? And if you're a parent, that's a terrifying question. Because whether we say it out loud or not, we don't really know what education is going to look like in 2030.
But today she will be sharing her story and her journey with us. So thank you, Dr. Keisha, for coming on.
It's my pleasure. So delighted to be here. Excited about the conversation. Pardon the glare. You know, I wear glasses and I can see already that I'm illuminated. So, audience, I apologize. I know this platform is professional, so pardon the glare, but I need to see.
No worries. The glasses are popping and you are shining bright like a diamond. So don't worry about it.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Keisha, will you inform these beautiful people about what it is you do and what your industry is?
Honored to do so. So I am a global literacy consultant. I have been in the field of early childhood literacy, education, etc. Professionally, about 12 years. And I'm global in the sense that I did my master's and doctorate in Asia, and was the first African-American woman to do so. So in the process of building up my experience as an educator, my experience in my research field, I was able to do a lot of classroom teaching, working with parents, and all of that has really matured into where I am now, which is I have my own literacy consulting LLC by the name of Dr. Keisha Cares. And the marketing is really true to the mission and the objective. I am a doctor in the area of education. I have all 3 degrees. Like I just kept climbing that thermostat.
Terminal, people. She's terminal.
Right.
Don't get it twisted.
So that doctor just lets you know that I'm rooted and grounded in what I share and what I say. And Keisha, because I am always myself. I've been rocking head wraps like any of my content. I always bring the ancestors with me. And since we're on a Zoom, you get to see the ancestors in the background. And then care, because this is my passion. I truly care about early childhood literacy from the parent-child perspective. I really empower parents to work with their own children because there's nothing stronger than that parent-child bond in terms of developmental learning. And so my research and my skill set really extends to birth all the way up to elementary, because that 3rd grade year is such a pivotal year that I don't like to just stop there. I try to also include 4th and 5th grade. So anyone who works with me can have my guidance and care and concern from birth all the way up until it's time to pack them off to middle school.
That's wonderful. And I've mentioned Dr. Keisha and her work already to a number of my friends and family and professionals that I know. And that's why I'm so happy to have her on our platform. The work that she does is very necessary, and I know that it will be inspiring to a lot of people out there. So thank you again for the work that you do.
Yeah, my dimple showing. I appreciate that. All this sheltering in place, like you're sort of operating in a vacuum. And so you just continue to put out, outstanding content, research-based content, and you don't get a chance to really hear, too many roses. So thank you. Like my dimples say, thank you. We feel that.
You are very welcome. So, you've already mentioned your ethnicity, but let's talk a little bit about, where you're from and what a typical day in the life is for you as a literacy consultant.
so no one's going to see this part coming. I am from Omaha, Nebraska.
Hey, Cornhuskers, talk about it.
Right. Who saw that? Who saw that? No, you didn't see that, did you? Surprise.
You and Gabrielle Union up here in Nebraska.
There are Black folks out there. One less, but we're here. But that's home. In terms of where I'm from, like, I am proud to say I have mixed heritage. My father is Ghanaian. My mother is from New Orleans, Louisiana, so truly African American. And yeah, I think that answers the question in terms of where I'm from.
Gotcha. And then what is a typical day in the life for you as a literacy consultant? What's your day-to-day schedule sort of been like?
Well, not only am I like a literacy consultant, but I own my own company. And so any entrepreneur, yourself included, like, you understand what progress you make is what progress you push forward. And so my typical day really varies. Like every Thursday, unless I'm speaking at a conference or I have a prior obligation that precedes this, I am doing a caring conversation on YouTube at like 8 p.m. Eastern. And so every week there's that days, there's like almost a cycle of preparation, whatever the theme is, because I personally curate the books and I also support it with research. And so typically a typical week is, making sure that we have the social media content there to advertise, that we're getting the message out there, because that's the free platform, because the whole part of caring is that no one is locked out of the information. And then you have your meetings and you have your higher level projects, and there's always a lot of Zoom calls or follow-up emails or networking. A lot of my concern and focus right now is protecting the mental health of children and parents, like helping them navigate this craziness through the power of reading aloud, through the power of the parent-child bond. Like, they have the ability to really help each other cope. And an example of that is just the natural love a parent has for their child. And if you've had any parent who's like a newborn, they have a newborn in the house and they're dealing with that zombie period where they're not getting any sleep. If you talk to any parent, and as crazy as it may be, whenever their child smiles, laughs, they have these special moments with them, it almost like shuts all that down. And so that's why I love working in this area of parent-child relationships and teaching parents how to replicate those moments within reading aloud as a way to buffer against just the craziness of this time and all of the uncertainty that we're walking in. Like, both bodies need that. And for the child, it's particularly important because this is happening during their developmental stages where their mind is like wet concrete and it's starting to solidify and harden. And so whatever good experiences, whatever bad experiences, that is going to show up in the DNA of that adult and how they handle problems or how they react to certain things. So mitigating that through the work that I'm doing is, yeah, I can go all day. Let me stop.
No. I love it. And then just hearing you talk about that, I don't have any kids myself, but I do have a nephew who's about to turn 2. I do have cousins who are newborns, and seeing, interacting with my family and their parents, and even my friends whose child is 2 and has a new one on the way. It's so important for you to be able to navigate these parts of the process, because there's no handbook to parenting, and it really does take a village to raise a child. And I would like to commend you on really being a pivotal part of that village, especially in those stressful times where the child just can't communicate to you what it is that they want.
Right.
And that's a hurdle.
Little side note, if you want to establish yourself as the man in any of your circles or like be the go-to guy, look at any of my content, because when you talk about age 2, newborns, all of that first year of life, children are breathing genius. Like, I often say this on multiple platforms, their brain is just firing at its highest capacity. During the course of their lifetime, your brain will never be this supple. And so they can't turn the learning off. So reading aloud with them, particularly in that first year, because they're sort of like the first 3 months, first 2 months, wherever you set them, that's where they are. So creating that routine, that practice, you're doing so much. Like you're bonding, you're building vocabulary, you're helping them understand tone. Kids it's amazing what they pick up. That's why in a lot of your multilingual, like that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow in the next caring conversation, or you may not air this on a Wednesday, so sorry, audience. We talked on a Wednesday.
That's okay.
But it's amazing how when children are, in that first 5 years, they can pick up as many languages as you throw at them because their mind is just a sponge. So yeah, I put this out there because here's the thing, what you don't know can hurt you in terms of your child may be brilliant, but they may not have had the same exposure as another child from another family. And then you get in a classroom and your child begins to think that maybe they're not as smart as they are because they're comparing themselves against someone that had a completely different early childhood education experience. And so then they start to limit their own potential because they no longer believe they're brilliant. I have had the heartbreaking journey of watching that happen in some of the global arenas that I work in. And that's probably why I'm willing to get online every Thursday and just hop on YouTube and whoever happens to watch it and put this content out there. Because when you talk about Black and brown children, when you talk about really moving initiatives forward, it has to start with a strong belief in their own intelligence. And you have to not only let them know that at a young age, but you also need to build in resilience. You also need to build in growth mindset. This isn't a one conversation thing. This is something you must do daily. And it's hard. Parenting is no small thing. And that's why I work with parents. All of my work in early childhood, it's all about empowering the parent to work with their child. Mm-hmm. I'll stop. You got to make me stop.
No, I'll let you go because, there are a lot of nuggets in there mm-hmm. that will light people in just a variety of ways. And I don't want to quench anyone's fire. I want them to be, happy and satisfied and really motivated to continue this process. And like I said, your work is very necessary and it's exciting. So trust me, I'm just gonna let you go when it comes to these responses. But I would say, one thing that I want to emphasize here is you are your own boss. You are an entrepreneur, and that is not an easy task by any means. And it takes a lot of courage to step out on your own and believe in yourself to do such a thing. So with that, I feel it's very important to share your journey because the 9 to 5 is not going to be for everyone. And that's just not the case. It's just not fitting for all personality types. And there's a reason why we have businesses today. And it's because one person did not fit that 9 to 5 stereotype. Mm-hmm. And so it's really important for me to share stories like yours. Now, would you please enlighten us on your academic track that has brought you to where you are today? Because I know you have all the degrees. So please share with us, what that path has been like for you.
Sure. So my bachelor's degree is in family science and cultural studies. And that was obtained at the University of Nebraska. I was on the Lincoln and Omaha campuses.
Okay.
And in undergrad, I thought I wanted to, at one time I thought I want to be a African-American history professor. And, I always saw the head wraps in my future. I just saw myself as a professor. And then I thought, no, I want to go into law school. And so, in undergrad, I was preparing to go to law school. So I'm like, well, I'll just study what I love because I'm going to law school anyway. And so I did a year of law school. and realized perhaps that isn't the ideal fit for me. And life really allowed me to really pivot and explore what it was I enjoyed. And then my master's degree ended up occurring in Asia. I did my master's at Beijing Normal University in Beijing, China. And then I did my doctorate at the University of Hong Kong in Hong Kong. And I finished that in 2018. I defended in 2019 because of the protests and everything that was happening. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like, you know, the timing was surreal because so much has changed, particularly in Hong Kong, that I almost see it as fortuitous that I was able to do everything when I did it, because who knows, you know, what that journey is going to look like now and in the future.
So what brought you over to China? Because that process is one that I think is very interesting to people, because you assume, you know, if you've gone to school in the States that you would remain in the States, but why pursue a degree outside of the States?
Yeah, so I was in China because to back up, after I did my first year of law school, I had a personal family issue arise. And so after the first year, I left to go support my family. And in the process of doing that, I began working as a substitute teacher just to start contributing to the family goal. And as I experienced that, I'm like, oh, I really love teaching. This is great. And then I saw that paycheck and I was like, no.
That's not great.
No, that's not career good. So maybe that's, volunteer good.
Exactly.
And so I found work in a law office because I was like, I'm going to stay on this legal track because I at least know those checks will help me minimize these student loans.
Amen to that.
Right? Much respect to all the educators out there, like Wakanda forever. But I was working in a law office and I had been there for a few years, getting everything where it needed to be. And when it was time to either return to school and finish or, make that next step, I really loved education. I was no longer working as a substitute teacher, but I was working in other capacities. Youth director for the NAACP. I had established several movements or organizations or events within the city I was in. This was in Florida at the time. And so I really understood that I loved working with youth and I loved being in the community aspect of it. And so an opportunity to teach in China arose. And so I decided just to take a gap year. The idea was, you're kind of conflicted as to what your next step is going to be. If you're going to pursue law, even though your heart isn't in it in the same way, but you have X amount of years experience and you have a clear path forward if you choose to go in that direction. Or you could pursue education. If you go that route, can you really hack it as a teacher? You've only substitute taught and that was at your own discretion. And so the opportunity to teach in China was more like an opportunity to really test this hypothesis that I could be a classroom teacher. And I had told myself that, okay, I'll take this 9-month contract. If I like it, I'll come back to the States and focus on getting my teacher certification and going from there. And in the course of that 9-month contract, just fortuitous opportunities, I was volunteering at an orphanage and this random hitchhiker came through volunteering. And I learned about a scholarship to go to grad school in China and got the information, did a little bit of research on my own, looking into the programs, looking into what was available. And just for the viewers, this was an English taught master's program. So please don't limit yourself if you are fortunate enough to be an English native speaker or be fluent in English, you'll be amazed at what opportunities are out there. So please don't limit yourself to something like as far-fetched as, I had never been to China. I didn't speak a lick of Chinese. I was just somebody that I knew I had a passport. And so I was like, and I knew I spoke pretty strong English, and they were looking for English language teachers. And so I took that opportunity, and all of these things came out of that, giant leap of faith. And that's how the master's program opportunity started, applied, got the scholarship, studied, did well, and then was encouraged to apply for a doctorate at both of the universities are prestigious. But at the time, the university I applied to for my doctorate, no foreigner from the program I was in had ever gotten in successfully. And I was the first to crack that ceiling as well, and then graduate from that university as the first. So that leap of faith knocked down 2 glass ceilings. So not only can you do it, first generation, low income, I know that narrative, I carry that narrative, but here I am with that in my toolkit. So it really doesn't matter how daunting the goal may be. If you truly have that mustard seed, not to get biblical, but just to be realistic, if you have that small amount of faith in yourself that you can do it, that's a sign that you should try.
Amen. Just talk about it. Just talk about it, Dr. Keisha. Come on now. Come on in here.
Come on in the room. Come on in the room.
Come on in here now. This is wonderful. I'm soaking it all in, guys. I'm taking it all in. I know you guys are, but it's special for me. This is motivational for me. Oh man, that's such a great story. And I'm so happy that you mentioned that there are opportunities outside of the United States that could be better than what you have here, but you just are not aware of them. And that's really that's 2 of the underlying foundations for what we do here is representation and awareness, and trying to bring those 2 things back to the community.
Yes.
And it's so key. It's so key. There's so many things you can do with that. But I digress. So moving forward,
Before we move forward.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Just throw this in there. I also want to add to that narrative that both of those scholarships, both of those degrees were on scholarship. So please don't also tell yourself that you need to have a stockpile of money. I did both of those degrees overseas on scholarships. The student loans I mentioned earlier are from the home team.
Wow.
And I was
See, this is what I'm talking about. Come on in here, Dr. Keisha. Come on now. Tell them. It is out here. The opportunities are there. You just need to make yourself aware and pursue.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, so good stuff. Great stuff right here. So, working as an entrepreneur, doing literacy consulting, and really just the entire Dr. Keisha Cares platform, what are the things that get you excited about what you do? What is it that wakes you up in the morning and just gives you that joyful smile that says, I get to go in here at 6 a.m. and I get to have this conversation with somebody and help impact their life?
When you asked the question, the first thing, it was actually like yesterday I had one of these moments. I love children's books. I love children's books. Like, I don't know. I don't have kids. I'm not married yet. I'll let your girl.
Hey.
But, I don't know. I love children's books. And I get so excited. Like when I'm shopping for books or I'm curating books, I'm on my highest level because I'm thinking about the narrative, I'm thinking about representation, I'm wondering what critical skills we're teaching, I'm looking at the author, I'm looking at the way in which they position diversity within the characters, like I'm in work mode. And so when I find those books that look like they might be worthwhile and I order them and then they arrive and then I get to like, it's crazy how I get geeked. Like you almost think I'm eating like some outstanding dessert because I need to do all the chores first before I let myself sit down, open it up, and then go through each book. Because when you're shopping for books online, thanks to sheltering in place, I don't have the ability to go to the library like I usually would. So there's like all this mystery involved right now in shopping for books online. So when the book arrives, it's a whole nother unveiling in the sense of now you can engage in the full story and then begin to see, okay, what can I curate? Like I'm working on 2 curations. One, we just finished Pride Month. So like I have a curated list of LGBTQ books and really talking about that. And I mean like baby board books all the way up until elementary. And then the next one, I'm thinking about my multilingual audiences. So like I just finished curating a list of children's wordless picture books. And so like these are the things. And so like when I went and like when I get the little notice on my phone that, my package has been delivered, I'm like flying high all day. And even when it's heavy, because it was 4 boxes. And I was like, okay, Keisha, good job working that. Getting the books and like bringing them home and being like, oh. So like that's like one of the main things that like just get me jumping out of the bed, like knowing it sounds so whack to say that. Opening up children's books and thinking about how these stories can support somebody's parent-child relationship, how this narrative can empower somebody else's child. And if you want to know like one great example, and shout out, we aren't endorsed yet, but maybe one day.
It's coming.
Lupita, you did such an awesome job with this story in the sense that you take a children's book. Colorism is such a real thing around the world. Every culture gives the darker skinned counterparts a harder time. I've yet to find a culture, unless you're talking about albinos, and then that's something completely different. But no culture switches this order as to where they esteem the darker skinned hues. And so when I came across Lupita's book, I thought it was beautiful that she had created this platform to really talk about colorism and do it in such an empowering way. So to have that book and then be able to go into a community and empower dark-skinned children, doesn't matter what demographic that they are, and tell them that you are the color of the sky, and share a story about your sister is a sun, and you represent all colors. Like I collect a lot of books that specifically deal with colorism or can be used to deal with colorism. Another one is Beautiful Blackbird. So like that's why I get so excited about these books, because when I see books, I see opportunities to empower, and I think the only other thing that brings me as much joy is when I'm working with parents one-on-one, because within my business, I have a certain very low rate for parents so that anybody that wants to work with me has that opportunity. And then I have my higher rates for organizations, NGOs, businesses, etc., that want to work with me.
And one thing I wanted to point out that you said is, it's like you're eating a dessert, because that is such an interesting metaphor, because you really are. You're feeding your mind. You may not be feeding your body, but you're feeding your mind. And that may be the most important thing that you can do as a person.
Yeah. And the sustenance, like the nourishment of a regular meal will get you through, 24 hours, 48, if you like, on one of them serious power trips. But the power of a story, that encourages you or lets you, gives you that moment of inspiration or gives you that skill set, it will sustain you in a moment. Like if we're sticking with the colorism metaphor, say that child, goes to school and they get bullied, they can go back to that book. Or if they have a parent that I'm working with, we could talk about that and I could suggest that in the book, as well as how to begin to not only have those conversations, but create those opportunities for that child to tell you about what happened to them through the third person character of a story. Like create spaces for the child to unpack what they're carrying and not necessarily rush into the moment with the solution, but create a space of dialogue.
That's so good. That's so good.
Where am I gonna go, Ken?
That's so good. Oh man. And that really applies to more than just children.
It's 2-generational learning. That's one of the reasons why I love the work that I do, because you're touching 2 to 3 generations through this work. You're educating the parent, you're educating the child, and then that child is a future parent. What's more rewarding than that? 3 generations of change? Yeah, it's amazing.
Wow. Such good things. I could just keep going on forever. But let me stay on track here, because I know everybody's attention spans are shorter these days. So let me get to the
point. They lost. This is us. Come on. They either gonna get with it or get left.
Hey, talk about it. Okay. So what would you say is one misconception that someone may have about you as a literacy consultant or as an entrepreneur?
I think when people see doctor, sometimes they put this separation between themselves and the message or the information they may think that they're going to relay. And that's why I have the Keisha, like in my logo, doctor is there, but the Keisha is so much bigger because I focus on relating to you from one human being to another. And sometimes if you have parents, because I work with the whole spectrum. And so when I have parents who may have their own insecurities around school or academia, one of the first things that we dismantle is the idea that you're not capable of doing this work, or that the experience you have isn't valuable. As the parent, as qualified as I am, my reading to your child won't be nearly effective as your reading to your child because of that relationship. And so that's one of the first things I always address and lovingly disregard, that you are the perfect person to do this.
Yes, that is so key. And like you said, that seed that you plant in your child will go on with them for the rest of their lives. And exactly. That is something that I'm sure, as you are very familiar with the graduate process, especially in those trying times, you are in a room full of experts. And even outside of the graduate process, in your day-to-day careers, you will be in a room full of experts. And you will be the person that they are expecting to, one, know what you're saying, know what you mean, and be confident about what you're saying. And that's something that has to come internally. It's not something that is taught to you. No one can teach you to be confident. No one can teach you to, mean what you say. Mm-hmm. These are all things that have to be, something that grows with you personally.
Yeah.
And it's so key that we instill that into children and let them grow into that. Know that that's going to be a process. It's not something that's going to happen immediately, but just keep reinstilling into them. You are great. You do have value, and you can be successful, and you will be successful.
Absolutely. And it also just recognizes that, listen, parenting is not easy. I have all these degrees so I can support you. Creating safe spaces to where the parent can unload. This is what I'm struggling with. This is what I don't understand. okay, here are these books. Let me look at this research, because I'm always looking at what is like, oh my goodness. I love Cultivating Genius. This is a research by, I'm not going to say her name wrong, Dr. Muhammad, Black woman, or woman of color. Sis, don't let me identify you the way I want to see you, woman of color. And I absolutely do the work so that the parent can be as empowered as possible when they're engaging with their child. Their child may not care that they know the latest research on this area, but they can be encouraged knowing that they're doing what is on the cutting edge of the research field. Like, that is the care, that is the support, that is the doctor. So you don't have to know everything, but you're in relationship with people that are passionate about knowing, that care enough to translate that to you in a curated book list, like taking all of the heavy lifting out so that they can do the best, most important work, loving on that child and reading aloud with them and strengthening that parent-child bond.
Ooh, this just gets me so excited. I'm just so happy that you exist. I mean, your existence alone makes me so happy, because I know, I don't have any children right now, but I want to have children in the future. And I'm very excited about that. And I already have plans of, going to soccer games and things like that. I'm very excited for that process, but I'm in no rush. But it's great to know that there are resources like that out here.
And I know there are also thirst traps, so be careful. You got the natural and the tie-on. You don't know what you're sending out, so let them know.
I am in no rush. Let me repeat that. No rush for any of those things.
You're just a problem solver.
Exactly.
So you're already thinking about solutions.
Exactly, yes. And I'm happy that your resources will be out there and will be available for me to partake in, because it's just such a challenge. I've seen both of my brothers, who are 7 and 9 years older than me, raise their kids and have been around them during that process. And it's just, I don't think you truly understand how difficult it is until you're, in your late teens, early 20s, and you're watching people around you start having kids, and you start to see how not only they raise their kids, but how your parents have raised you, and how much it takes away the mask and the cape that we see parents with as children. Mm-hmm. Now you start seeing parents as people. Yeah. And that is something that is super key to your development into how you are going to become a parent. So I am just so excited that your resources will be out there.
I appreciate that. I don't have children, maybe one day. And, I don't have a spouse. Sheltering in place is like not making that possible. But I think it is so rewarding that I get to work with parents, that I get to talk to people and support other adults that are in those milestone moments of life, that are still navigating their way through this unknown, in some ways minefield, because a lot of parents, every parent fears doing the wrong thing, and because there is no instruction manual, what does that even look like? And so just creating these spaces of grace, these safe spaces where you can take off that cape, where you can take off that crown, where you could just say, I don't have any idea what I'm doing. Like, I'm just trying to figure out how to navigate all the other things the child needs just to stay alive. What is reading aloud supposed to look like, And all of the misnomers parents may have around what reading aloud should look like. Because if you don't know, you just replicate what you experience. And it's not a classroom, it's a home environment. So just helping parents navigate what reading aloud can be, all of the fun things you can do. It doesn't have to be a seated activity. It can be very active depending on the child. But yeah, these are the things that just make it an amazing experience and an honor really to support parents and educators, because I also work with a lot of teachers in this space as well.
Come on in here, Dr. Keisha. Come on now.
Where are we going? Where are we going? I already came in. How many rooms are there?
Woo, I'm fired up. I am excited. You done got me on 10. Boy, this has been wonderful. I am just so pleased to have you here. So in these last couple of minutes here, we got about 5 or 6 minutes left.
Sure.
But I just want to ask you two important questions that I ask all the professionals that I have on here. The first thing would be, what is one obstacle that you faced in your career to this date? What has been one key obstacle that you've had to overcome? And then the second question that I would like to ask you is, what is a piece of advice you would like to offer someone who may want to follow in your footsteps or may want to pursue entrepreneurship or a career like yours?
One obstacle, if I'm looking at the current moment, one obstacle is just navigating. I'm a global expert and a lot of my contacts are global. So as I have built this company in the US, because my first company was in Hong Kong. And so as I have come to the US and I had this idea that I was going to, work, and I landed, I was on schedule. I landed the 6-figure job. I was in a great city. I should have been in my best life moment. But I encountered, a toxic workplace. And that's a very real reality that I think students need to be aware of. In this moment, we're seeing a lot of social justice protests that are talking about racism, and we're talking about some of the hardcore issues. But I also want these youth to realize that there is also residue of those issues in the workplace. And at no point should you ever allow yourself to stay somewhere that is putting this racism on you, that is belittling your intelligence, that is basically holding you hostage with a paycheck. Never feel like you have to withstand such abuse, even if it means you're stepping out into an uncertain job market. I left that position for those reasons, took a different position that brought me to my current location, and then had a much better work environment, had a promising, path in front of me. And then COVID happened. And then next thing you know, they can't continue to keep me on payroll because their whole fundraising bottom line has dramatically changed. And so it was one of those situations where, and this is also my advice in the midst of me answering the first question, because I had my credentials, because I had educated and rooted myself in a skill set, I knew that if I launched out on my own, I had the credentials to sustain myself. So first thing, in terms of your greatest obstacles, you are most often where your solution starts. So if I am the solution, do I have the skill sets? Have I developed the discipline to really pursue something? Do I have the determination and persistence to continue to chase after it? Because very rarely does the money cash app to your account automatically. Sometimes you got to sit in it a while before you see a PayPal, a Venmo, a Cash App, a check. You have to do the work. Your reputation oftentimes has to precede you. So my advice to all of the future entrepreneurs out there is, first of all, you can do this. You can do this. I want you to do this. I want you to experience landing a client, signing a contract, publishing your work. I need you to be validated because I need you to be the best version of yourself so that you can get on the internet and inspire somebody else to replicate what you've done. It's a ladder. It is not an elevator. I invite you to climb.
Ooh. Now that is a professional right there, y'all. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to add any salt, any sugar. It's already good the way it is. So with that, I am going to leave the floor here for you and just give you, a minute to give any shout outs or any statements or plug any content that's coming out that you want the people to know about.
Thank you for that opportunity. If anyone has felt inspired or is curious about the work that I'm doing, there is a plethora of content out there. Under my LLC, my business, Dr. Keisha Cares. That is all you need on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, my name, Dr. Keisha Siriboe. You can find the spelling because that is a tongue twister and you may not know how to just phonemically spell that. You'll see it in the captions, just YouTube me. But yeah, I've been doing this work. You'll see a lot of my, one of my biggest content is my TEDx talk in Hong Kong. It has around 54,000 views. And that is what a lot of people know me for. I've been advocating for reading aloud since 2015, but because of 3 years of work, I then had that opportunity in 2018. So yeah, stay in touch. I guess follow me, like me, subscribe. I hope I said it right. Either way, I just hope you learn. I just hope it's of value. That's really all that matters to me.
For sure, yeah. And we will put your full name in the video, and we will drop a link in the description below so you can contact her and get her content immediately. You won't have to go to any other places. So thank you again to Dr. Keisha. We really appreciate you coming onto the platform. And at this point, I'm going to look to the camera, as I always do, and remind you guys, as Dr. Keisha has, to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another episode of the Black Professionals Project. And so you can ultimately find the path that is for you and figure out what makes you happy, because there are a lot of opportunities out there, and there are faces and stories that match yours and do those same things. So we want to match you with those faces and give you a little inspiration. So with that, there's been another great episode of the Black Professionals Project, and we will see you guys next week.